welcome everybody once again. Thanks for joining us for this exclusive webinar. I am Sanjay Karadhal. I head the India business for Delphi Infotech. We are value-added distributors for Mimecast in India, and I have my friend Richard Amarsingham from Mimecast, who's co-presenting in this webinar for us. The topic, as we already know, is targeted threat protection, and we'll just be starting. So in case you want to add some faces to our names, this is who we are. We did something similar last month as well. I'm not sure if we have anybody who's part of that webinar as well. But we're just trying to take this conversation a little forward. Last time we talked mostly about the threat landscape, how it is impacting businesses worldwide. And this particular webinar is a little focused on how Mimecast provides targeted threat protection. In simple words, not just protection from known threats, but also talking about how Mimecast is able to stop advanced threats from impacting your businesses. This is a quick checklist of some key pointers that we are going to cover in the webinar today. I've already introduced ourselves as so. The need of the hour, as if we go a little deep about India, used to be a geography which was possibly not in the top 5 amongst the most targeted geographies in the world. But in the last 1 or 2 years, it has climbed that ladder up and reached number 3. We possibly don't know whether it might get to number 2 or number 1 as well. The second question which we regularly get from people is that why attackers rely on email to attack as well. As per statistics, 91% of the people or the organizations who get cyber attacks, 91% of those attacks, they happen from email. And why it is more important to be able to prevent advanced attacks from happening is because in order to stop known attacks, there are a lot of solutions which organizations have already implemented in their companies. It can be antivirus, it can be a firewall, any endpoint solution, sometimes server-level solutions as well. If we quickly look at some of the recent surveys and attacks that have happened, we found out that more than 9 out of 10 attack companies in India, they already had an endpoint protection program or a solution in place, but still they got impacted by a malware. It can be known malware, it can be an unknown malware, it can be broken malware as well. So that is something which is alarming. One of the recent attacks which happened in India specifically was reported on the 18th of July. Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital, they got hit by a malware-based ransomware attack. They could not access emails, they could not access their patient management system. It's all in the news as well. And these are some of the examples which have been reported. There are a lot of cases where companies don't report these attacks after getting impacted by those. Primarily because it's not just financial damage, it's not just loss of data, it's also loss of reputation which will happen. We don't know whether Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital in Navi Mumbai did pay the ransomware which the attacker asked them for, but we did know that for about 2 weeks they were not able to access their emails or their patient management system. We can only understand what kind of impact it had to their customers, the patients, and the company as well, or the hospital as well. Another attack, it was again very recently, it happened in the month of June, where a company in Pune, they lost 3 crore rupees in 3 days. And it was a typical example of an impersonation attack where someone pretended to be someone else, requested for an advance payment. The company transferred the money, they did not get the receipt for it. So they contacted the relevant authorities in the cybersecurity cell of the government, of the police, and they tracked the accounts overseas, but the account had already been closed, the money was already withdrawn, so there was no way they could have got that money back. And the history in the last 2-3 years is actually filled with similar examples. It's either loss of data, it's either loss of money, it's either through some malicious code or through impersonation, spoofing, social engineering. Another interesting example from 2016, the famous film producer Ronnie Screwvala, his NGO, it lost lakhs and lakhs, close to 35 lakh rupees over a span of few months. And the attack mode was very simple. The attacker was impersonating to be Ronnie Screwvala. He possibly created a lookalike email ID or a doppelganger email ID or similar to Ronnie Screwvala's email ID, and requested wire transfers to oblige various entities distributed across multiple accounts, and they still couldn't recover that money back. While 35 lakhs seems to be a small amount, but for an NGO, it was a huge loss. Something similar happened with Flipkart as well. I think it was again in the year of 2016. Flipkart claims that the attack was not successful. The attack was simple. The CEO apparently sent an email to CFO. CFO was not sure whether to transfer that wire transfer of $80,000 to the respective account. So he contacted the CEO back, asking whether you asked me to make that payment or not, only to find out that CEO was actually on a holiday, and the email was not sent from the CEO. So they claimed that the attack was averted. It was not successful, but the CFO moved on from the organization very soon. So we can only guess what might have happened. It's possible that the attack was successful. It's also possible that the attack was not successful. So there's a lot of examples which have happened recently. I'd like to hand over the presentation to my friend Richard from Mimecast to be able to take us forward in the presentation. Richard, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Appreciate it. How are you today, everyone? Okay, guys, we're going to get straight into it. So my name is Richard. I look after the channel business across India and into the Middle East. And today's session is really to talk about two key elements. It's the cyber threat landscape, to making sure that you're aware and understand what's going in the cyber realm in today's age, and how you can win with cyber resilience. So these are the two core components of my presentation today. There'll be detailing around Mimecast, but also getting an understanding. So to begin with, we need to understand, what are we trying to protect and from whom? We have to also grasp the fact that a breach is inevitable. And instead of just having all these different technologies out there, we need to focus on early detection and response. And that's by having a multi-dimensional approach. I'm going to share a video with you. So it's about a 3.5 minute video. And that will be able to, highlight some key gaps that businesses are facing today. So I'm going to go ahead and play that. Please let me know if you can't hear the audio.
The race is on to get a fully self-driving car to market.
Autonomous car company Opticon promises a
cars that drive themselves. Opticon's new cars.
Joining conference now.
Destroyed data and deleted the backups. We can recover most of it, but some of the research may be gone for good. According to the forensics, they may have had access to the blueprints.
The FBI arrested a San Francisco man in connection with last month's Opticon.
Hey Brian, can I get you anything? Coffee or soda or something?
No.
So, walk me through it, step by step.
Well, I took over the website to a bowling alley.
Brian, this is not a joke.
Okay, look. They have this research facility down the peninsula, and they're working on optical tracking cameras for driverless cars. So, just searching through social media, I get the names of a whole bunch of engineers who are working there. And as I'm looking them up, I come across this bowling league where a bunch of tech companies play every Wednesday. And this is an old school bowling alley with this really ancient website. And it has all the league info, company names, player names.
Okay, so you hacked into a bowling alley website.
Yeah.
All right, explain how that works.
It's called an iframe injection attack. It's this old exploit that hits anyone that visits the website. So a week later, this guy from Opticon suddenly has my malware on his laptop. I couldn't believe it worked. It was like a joke.
What does that get you?
Well, the next day he goes to work and he opens his laptop and he connects to the network. And that's it. I'm in.
Yeah, but that still doesn't get you inside. I mean, they discovered it. They wiped the laptop, scanned the network.
They didn't scan the whole network. The thermostat's part of the network. It's inside the firewall. It's connected to Opticon's entire network. You can get the whole standard configuration and password online in 30 seconds. I got it off the manufacturer's website. So they scanned most of the network. They didn't scan the thermostat.
Then what?
Then I just went exploring. It was a totally flat network, no subnets or anything. I could see everything, HR files, legal documents, R&D. When I found the blueprints, I realized I could make some money off these files.
What happened after you sent the files?
Oh, then I burned everything down. I wiped everything I could find, encrypted drives and deleted backups.
Is the number down? I can't get
Change service with the database. The servers look corrupt. We're going to have to do a full restore from the backups.
No, the backups are encrypted.
This is deliberate.
This is a major breach.
Malware.
We gotta call the FBI.
I was just scared. I was trying to cover my tracks.
And somebody paid you how much exactly?
75 bitcoins.
Nice. Not enough to retire on, but still. All right, Brian Page. Are you sure you don't know who paid you?
European automaker Q-Car has beaten Opticon to market with their QX sedan, the world's first self-driving car. Opticon shares tumbled 11%.
It's quite scary, isn't it? Just confirm for me, is it Mahipal, Rajesh, Satish, and Shashank? Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to pop it through the chat or unmute yourself and feel free to ask so I can answer that then and there. So it's quite alarming, that video, because it gives people the concept thinking that everything is okay. But what if everything you thought you knew was wrong wasn't actually wrong? What if the fact was that there might be some backdoor open, right, into your organization? Now, the great thing about the business that I work for, Mimecast, is that we work in a business where every single business utilizes an email solution. Now, the scary thought is it's also the most vulnerable. Does anyone like to guess what the percentage of attacks that originate via email is? Cool. So Sanjay mentioned it earlier. It's 91%. 91% of attacks start via email. This is quite a scary thought. Now, who's behind these attacks? Now, there's outsiders, internal actors, there's multiple parties. And what are the types of methods that they use? You know, hacking is one of them, malware, breaches, social engineering. These are all different forms of attacks. Now, the average cost of a data breach is up to now 4 million, up 29%. And that's mainly due to the loss of business. And costs are continuing to climb. 48% of breaches are malicious because they cost more to remediate from than having a preventative approach. Now, why is this? If I was to use a real world example, if you owned a car and you didn't have insurance on that car and you got into an accident, the cost to remediate from that accident without insurance is significantly more than having that preventative approach by having insurance in place. Now, we can all identify, especially, everyone that's on the webinar today are in the IT field or have some relation to cybersecurity, IT management, CIO, CXO level, right? And you can understand that ransomware is on the rise. As Sanjay clearly pointed out, India is the third most targeted country in the world for impersonation attacks. And email is the number one delivery vehicle mechanism for ransomware. One of my colleagues actually pointed out to me a couple of weeks ago, and he sent me this article which mentions there's 360,000 malware files created every day. Now that's crazy, right? In the world that we live in, there is some sort of computer, some sort of person sitting that is constantly making some sort of ransomware to target businesses. Now, the FBI reported in 2016 that over $200 million, $9 million was paid out in ransomware. But over 40% of companies that were hit with ransomware that did pay, only half of them, actually less than half of them, got their data back. Now, what does this tell us? It tells us ransomware is on the rise, breach and the trends are changing. It's easier to hack a person than it is to hack an industry-leading firewall, right? The methods that used to exist 5, 10, 15, even 20 years ago are also changing, right? Now, this chart clearly talks to how malware has increased dramatically, especially in the last 5 years, right? Hacking, social engineering. Malware, what used to be difficult is now easy. And with social engineering, what used to be easy is now even easier. As I mentioned, it's easier to hack a person than it is to hack a multi-million-dollar firewall, right? Now, I'll provide this example, right? One of my colleagues shared this, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It was a tweet that was put out by the Associated Press. Now, this was a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, and it mentioned 2 explosions in the White House. Barack Obama is injured. Now, the AP Corp Communication, they created a new Twitter account, and it said, hey, the AP Twitter account has been suspended after it was hacked. Now, this is not something that's generated by email, but this tweet about the attack on the White House was false. Now, you're thinking, hey, this was created, original tweet was created around midday, 1 p.m., and then it was rectified later on in that day. 7:30 at night, it's all good. Everything's back to normal. But have a look at what happened to the stock market on that day. There was a 143-point drop, right? Wall Street collided with social media on Tuesday when a false tweet from a trusted news organization sent the US stock market into freefall. Now, we need to understand the concept of cyber resilience. It might be a new term to you, it might be something that you've come across, but cyber resilience is an evolving perspective, and it's rapidly gaining recognition. It brings the concept of information security, business continuity, and data resilience all together. Now, if we're looking at cyber resilience from an email specific, which is what Mimecast Forte is, right? It talks about ensuring predictable outcomes through comprehensive security controls before, continuity during, and automated recovery after an attack. So I'm really here to talk to you today about a multi-dimensional approach that can ensure your business has the preventative and comprehensive security measures before, continuity during, and automated recovery after an attack. Any questions so far? Great, I'm going to carry on. So to put it in perspective, more and more businesses are shifting to the cloud, primarily Office 365, but G Suite along with that. Traditionally, people were on Exchange, on-prem. Some businesses might have a hybrid scenario. Mimecast is 100% cloud software as a service. However, people get that confused by not working with on-prem service. We work with your on-prem Exchange, also with your Office 365 G Suite, but also with a hybrid scenario setup. So if you're on-prem, we're compatible. If you're in the cloud, we're compatible. If you're transitioning towards the cloud, we can help you mitigate your risk by transitioning to the cloud in a safe and secure with 100% uptime. Now, how does Mimecast work? Which is really what we're on this webinar for, right? Mimecast sits as an additional cloud layer on top of the existing mail platform. It's compatible with all your devices, so your laptop, mobile phones, and through your web portals. To provide you with some confidence, Mimecast sends and receives over 379 million emails a day. That's over 15 million an hour, over 5,000 a second, over 30 billion a month. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning that is we've been in the email business for over 15 years. It's not something new, but it's quite new to the Indian market. There's 3 core elements that we focus on, right? We sit at the MX record level, so your MX records are redirected towards Mimecast, and we're essentially a gateway service. And there's 3 components that we really focus on. The first of which is security, the next of which is continuity, and the next of which is archiving. So I'm going to run through a couple of elements and core components that fulfills our security portfolio, and then I'm going to delve a bit deeper into what that really means. So today you're here to hear about targeted threat protection and how Mimecast can protect you from a cyber resilience framework. The core components that make up a security portfolio includes intelligent routing, which is either a hybrid setup and intelligently routing mails down to on-prem and Exchange and Office 365 at the same time. DNS authentication, antivirus, anti-spam, which I'll talk a bit more into. Targeted threat protection, which is what this webinar is about, and I'll delve a bit deeper into that. DLP services, so things leaving the organization. We use a technology called fuzzy hashing fingerprinting that's able to do ratio scans and matches to be able to provide an additional layer of security for emails leaving the organization. And part of our standard security portfolio is disclaimer management. So signature, branding, tracking, all of these things are associated with a standard security portfolio. Now, to delve a bit deeper, it's important to understand where we've really come from, right? And to identify some of the trends that have shifted throughout the market. So traditionally, antivirus and anti-spam, every security vendor out there does antivirus and anti-spam. How we do it differently is provide 100% layer and guarantee. It's an SLA for our antivirus engine. We've got a 7-layer engine that's able to provide a best-of-breed paid third-party services along with our own proprietary software to make sure your viruses do not come in. From an anti-spam perspective, we've got a 99.5% anti-spam engine. And the reason for that is because what might be spam to me may not be spam to you. And so the false positive rate, as I mentioned, we send and receive over 379 million emails a day. And we've got a false positive rate of 0.0001%. Now, if you look at that from your company's perspective, spending an average of say 5, 10, maybe 15 seconds on each spam emails, you can see the amount of real time that your business is wasting if spam is a key issue for you. Likewise, from a virus perspective. But trends have shifted, right? We've seen in the video on how the cyber threat landscape has evolved. It's constantly changing, and as it changes, we need to make sure we can be adept and keep up with the times. But not only keep up with the times, be able to future-proof our software to make sure we're able to combat the threats that are coming our way. Why is this important, right? It's because we need to have an additional layer on top of your email gateway service, right? Office 365 Exchange, it's just not enough to have a productivity platform in place. It's important to have an additional cloud layer. We have a concept that and a phrase that we use quite regularly, that 2 clouds are better than 1, or an additional layer is better than just having a single vendor approach. Now, this is what we call our targeted threat protection suite, right? And it addresses this evolving threat. This includes phishing, spear phishing, impersonation attacks, and internal attacks that are spread laterally throughout the organization. Now, to talk about URLs, I've got this fancy diagram up there, but really to break that down, our URL protection, how it really works is we rewrite the link every click, every time. Now, why is this important for businesses like yourself? It's because if you scan a link just on the way in, which we do, right? And then it sits in your mailbox. If you're like me, you can't get to all your emails in one day. So your emails is there sitting in your inbox. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't go to Google and I retype the URL in Google. I use the email that was sent to me and the link, URL link within that email to click on. And usually it's not that same day, right? It could be an hour later, it could be 24 hours later, it could be a couple of days later. And the threat that businesses face is that it might be safe on delivery and access via into your email. However, it can be easily hacked and compromised after. So Mimecast looks at the source code in real time. So we rewrite the link. It's a short URL link, and we rewrite that link to redirect to Mimecast, and we'll scan it in real time. On top of that, the biggest threats to businesses is the lack of education, right? And so what we're able to do is provide dynamic user awareness that's able to actually test the users and be able to provide a tangible report to the CIO, CFO, CEO of how your users are tracking. And it dynamically tests them. So the more they get it incorrect, right, they get tested more. The more they get it correct, they get tested less. And there's a tangible report that can be delivered to the end users. So this is addressing the key evolving threat of phishing. Now, from a spear phishing perspective, attachments is there, right? There's a traditional preemptive sandbox that's in place that the majority of people do use, right? But how Mimecast does it differently is we're able to provide a transcription service that's able to provide documents and attachments in real time, right? With zero delay, zero threat, and also zero ransomware. It's essentially a screenshot of the existing document. Now, if people wanted the original document, they're more than welcome to click on a link there to go to the sandbox and retrieve that original document. But this gets rid of zero-day attacks, zero-hour attacks associated with attachments, also known as spear phishing, right? And that concept of ransomware and latency is now removed due to the effectiveness of our backend and being 100% cloud software as a service. On top of that, another key element that has evolved in the past couple of years is the element of impersonation protection. Now, if I was able to take one of your business cards and I went to one of your customers and I went to them and said, hey, my name is Sanjay from Delphi. You may believe me, because at the end of the day, you haven't met me before. And so this is an occurrence that's happening more and more over email on a daily basis. So what do? We're able to look at some key indicators that actually talk to how impersonation protection protects our customers. The first of which is we look at the display name. So let's look at Delphi. If I was to take Delphi and replace the L with a capital I, to the naked eye, I won't be able to tell the difference to either pick that up to the naked eye. But what's more is that there's more and more different types of attacks happening each day associated to this. And this is the evolution of homoglyphs and homographs, right? Where people change the source code in the background, but not to the naked eye. So this is something that Mimecast can protect against. Also, a similar domain, right? So that's what I talked to. The similar domain is what I was referring to when I gave that example. The display name is in regards to if it's someone from outside the organization relating to someone in the organization, right? Now we look at that. Then we also look at the reply to mismatch. We look at the activity date, right? What's going on with this email that's sent through? Is it being sent from one organization, but the reply to is hacker.com? And then we also look at keyword search. The great thing about our keyword search dictionary that we've already built out is that it's also customizable. So you can add your key elements to keyword search to identify that. Now, there's a couple of different options that we provide our customers. The first of which is we can tag and brand that email. So we mark it as suspicious. We send it down to the end user anyway, because it's identified, say, a couple of these indicators. The next of which is we can quarantine it, let an admin hold, review, and provide access if they deem it safe. The next is we can bounce it. We can say, hey, let's get rid of it because it's more likely not impersonation. Might tick all those 5 key indicators. But the great thing about a cloud software as a service model is that we're fully customizable down to the individual policy. So whether you want to make a policy for a specific individual, or do you want to make a policy for a group or an entire organization, that is more than possible. On top of that, what we've seen is the rise of internal spread attacks, the lateral movement of that. Because why? Someone can look to attack maybe a HR or IT department and then send an impersonated email or an internal email and spread it laterally amongst organizations because their credentials have been harvested. So the internal email protection is an add-on to our existing security portfolio known as S2. And what that does, is we're able to do that content inspection, URL inspection, attachment inspection without sandboxing, and then provide internal users to know whether it's safe. Essentially how this is done through a journaling rule. Any questions around that? With sandboxes, my apologies, guys. Any questions so far? Were there any questions? Okay, I've just got a question now. No, it was Mohit. All right, I'm gonna continue on, guys. So that's from a security perspective, right? Now, what happens when your Exchange server, your Office 365 goes down? Anyone know? Productivity goes down, right? Businesses go down. It means you can't be operational. You can't send and receive emails, means you can't operate as a business. So what Mimecast does is we're able to provide instant connectivity. It's a policy-driven engine that we provide an SLA around. So it's 100% SLA using our continuity services, where you can continue to send and receive emails, even though your Exchange or Office 365 is down. Office 365 went down about a month ago, and businesses were offline. But if you are on Mimecast, you face no such issues. The great thing about that is that you can ensure 100% availability and provide tangible evidence to your business that you won't ever go down from an email perspective. Now, from an archiving perspective, we've got massive scale. Why is this important, right? It's because we've got different data centers spread geographically around the world.
So Richard,
yes.
Richard, sorry to interrupt you, Maipal this side.
No.
You said whether it's Exchange down or the Office 365 down, then Mimecast will provide the services. And how will it work? Suppose I'm talking about the Exchange. Suppose my Exchange server was got down. And how will you provide these services for the emailing?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Maipal. So essentially, Mimecast, your MX records are redirected to Mimecast, right? So we're the first point of entry in, last point of entry out. So what we do is we act as your mail provider when you're down via our continuity service. So what that means is, when your Exchange is down, your MX records are pointed to us already, and we'll use Mimecast. You can either do an automatic failover, and it can be automatic for your entire user base, or you can provide an option where individuals can activate continuity mode. And essentially, when your Exchange server does come back online, we're able to dedupe all of that down to your mail server so that there won't be any duplicates.
So what happened to the existing email? Suppose I wanted to search in between. Suppose I wanted to search something onto the Exchange. Then what will happen? Then how will I get the data from there?
Absolutely. So because it's redirected to Mimecast, right? As long as you're using Mimecast services, you'll be able to check everything as normal, as if Exchange was running.
So you mean to say that everything what is available onto the Exchange, it will be replicated to the Mimecast. All the data will be available with the Mimecast also.
Absolutely. So from the day that you start using Mimecast, every email that's sent and received from that day will be available, right? If you want to ingest all your previous emails, then we've got an ingestion service that caters for that, and that really talks to the archiving capability of what Mimecast can do around the multi-dimensional approach. So if you're looking and talking about emails prior to becoming on Mimecast, then it has to be ingested in. If you're talking about when you move on to Mimecast, whether you can search that even when Exchange is down, by using a security continuity service, you'll be able to do that. Absolutely.
Okay, then what happened if Mimecast goes down?
So the great thing about Mimecast is we're geographically spread. So we've got different data centers on different floodplains, on different electricity grids, right, around the world, right? So we're spread. Like each of our emails, they're triple kitted. Header, body, and metadata is stored in different locations. So if, say, Mimecast went down in one data center, that won't affect, just in a hypothetical scenario, if it, say, it went completely offline, right, in one data center, that wouldn't affect us because we're spread across geographically around the world. Does that make sense?
Same thing is applicable for the Office 365 also. We have also the multiple servers, and I don't think I haven't seen ever that Office 365 goes down.
Right.
So,
if you actually Google has Office 365 goes down, you will find multiple reports. Also, Office 365 doesn't provide 100% SLA. So we've got a 100% money back guarantee, right? That if Mimecast ever went down, right, you're entitled for your money back. Right, because we're built 100% cloud software as a service with a backend that's similar to Google, and it's called grid computing. And essentially, how it works, right? So think about when you used to search for something on Google, say 10 years ago, right? The results would take, say, 5, maybe 10 seconds. But now, when you would search it, right, it takes, pretty much instantaneously, right, your results. Right, as data starts to grow and build on a different microservices layered platform, which is what Mimecast is, right? It's a stack of different microservices built on top of each other, spread geographically around the world in regards to our platform, and we're built from the ground up, right? So we didn't, as we grow, we're not just purchasing different solutions or different acquiring different companies out there. We rewrite the software into our platform, right? Any acquisition that we have done, it's rewritten into our software. It's not just, we buy that and let's try to integrate it, or let's just try to make it work, right? So that's why we're able to provide the surety of 100% SLA.
Okay.
Right, but I encourage you to check. Are you on Office 365?
Yes, we are on.
You're on Office 365. I encourage you to do a Google search of Office 365. Does Office 365 go down? Don't take my word for it, because I work for Mimecast, right? But read some articles on the inevitable fact that Office 365 does go down. Right, and then we can have a deeper discussion around the differences between Mimecast and Office 365 in a more one-to-one scenario. This is really for you to understand. The purpose is for you to understand at a high level what Mimecast is capable of, and then we can delve deeper in a one-on-one session, not with myself, but one of our team, and Sanjay and the Delphi team will be able to facilitate that with you, because I'll tell you now itself. 38% of our customers globally are using Office 365, right? I live here in Dubai. One of our customers that came on board in the last year, now they're on Office 365. They've got over 70,000 users using Office 365 and Mimecast. But we also have organizations that have 10 users, right, using Office 365 and Mimecast. Now, there's a reason for that, right? People would only go with Office 365 and thinking that it won't go down. But the inevitable fact is it does. So what Mimecast is able to do is provide that additional layered approach.
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Can I just ask you a quick question? Were you using were you using Microsoft for your, your security and your availability when you were on Exchange?
No, not yet.
Okay. Why is that?
Sorry?
Were you
No,
using?
we are not using any additional security on that.
Okay, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, let's we can have a more detailed conversation offline about that, and I'll move on to I guess the last component of this multi-dimensional approach, which is archiving. Is that all good?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Now, from an archiving perspective, as a default, Mimecast provides 99-year retention on all your emails. It provides 99 years default retention on all your emails, right? Now, I've actually never heard of any other company that provides 99 years as default. But on top of that, data is growing, right? There was an analyst that came out with a fact that data is growing at a rate of 40% year on year, right? And any growing business can actually attribute to the fact that data is not shrinking. This is why, even if you look at the USB game, when they used to make 1 gig and 2 gig USBs, these days you'll find it very hard to find 1 and 2 gigs, and the standard might be 8, 16, 32, 64. There's a reason for this, right? The price that you used to be able to buy a 1 gig for is not available. The price that 8 gig was is now the cost of what 1 gig used to be. And it's because data is continuously looking to grow, right? And as data continues to grow, cost for businesses continue to grow. So what Mimecast does, it eliminates that use for charging customers for the cost of data growing. And what we do is we provide a flat rate for all your data. So whether your business is archiving, one user is archiving 10 gigs or the other person's archiving 100 gigs, we do not charge extra for the extra amount of gigs, right? Ever, right? So that's another, we've got unlimited amount of storage. On top of that, we triplicate our data. So we're able to store the metadata. This is the header, the body. This talks to our compliance, GDPR compliant ISO certifications with 3 different ISO certifications. Being able to make sure that we're compliant is essential for us. And this is why we're recognized by Gartner as a leader for enterprise information archiving 3 years in a row. On top of that, we're able to provide military grade 256 military grade encryption. But one of our biggest and key differentiators around our archiving platform is something that really utilizes our backend, which is grid computing, similar to grid computing. And this is our search SLA capability. Now, if I was to ask, the audience here today, how long will it take you to search an email from, say, 1 week ago? How long will that take you? Probably a couple of minutes, right? Maybe if you've got a good solution in place, it might take you a minute or 2. But if we were to go back, say, 1 year ago, that might take a bit longer, right? Maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. But if we were to go back, say, 10 years ago, some people are logging tickets and they have to wait maybe 24 hours, maybe some people even longer. Some people might get it within a couple of hours, who knows? But if you get the search parameters wrong, what do you have to do? You have to start all over again. So the beauty of Mimecast, due to our backend and being born in the cloud in 2003 as a software as a service, is our search capability. And we've got an SLA around this, and we're able to recover any email, whether it's 1 week, 1 year, or 10 years ago, within 7 seconds. Now that's a guaranteed search SLA, right? And that's only going to get faster as time goes on and data begins to grow. So that's a key feature of us from an archiving perspective and a key differentiator. On top of that, we're able to send and receive files of up to 2 gigs, which is an additional product. We're also able to provide secure messaging. The beauty of this is it's all controlled in one single administration console. So I know we've run about 3 minutes over time, so I do apologize about that. But essentially, at a high level, this is our multi-dimensional approach for cyber resilience for email.